Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Week 8 of the Team Draft Super League. We have Team Limited Resources going up against Team Channel Fireball, and it looks like we have the two losers doing commentary for this round. How are you doing today, Ben?
All right, better before I just, lost that match, but I can't complain.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping to just lock in Black-White Zombies again, but I felt like you were just not going to let that happen.
Oh, no. I would never pass that kind of cohesive broken decking team. That's the kind of stuff that gets you fired around where I come from.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I will say that the draft was a lot harder to read because I think you were the one passing to me. And there was a really funny thing that happened in the draft. So you opened Hour of Devastation, right?
Right.
Passing it to me, maybe hoping that I take it.
So it's complicated. Like, I didn't necessarily know if you would take it or not, but I think that card is just actually not very good in team draft.
Right. Yeah, but I think Wrath Effects, especially against players who know that it exists, it's a lot easier to play around.
Exactly. And, like, white tends to be the creature color, not a control color. Like, at least the Bond to the Black Wrath, at least black wants to play a long game and, grind and has Wander in Death. White is, like, very aggressive, so I don't even know if that's a good card in this format.
Yeah, I think
especially not in team.
So the fun thing is you opened it. I saw it. I first picked the 2-mana 3/1 Exert, and I was just like, well, I kind of want to be aggressive. I don't think I want to take this card. Also, since I first picked that card, maybe I passed the Hour of Devastation to Luis. He takes it, and then I start cutting off white from him. But then he passed it too, figuring he could play around the card. And I think Marshall actually got the Wrath 4th pick in that.
Yeah, well, like I said, that may be a bomb and sealed in this format, maybe okay in 8-man, but I'm guessing Luis's logic is the same as mine, that that's just probably not a very good card in a team draft in this format,
Yeah, he definitely just said, you know what? I figured I could just play around it, and my teammates, you guys are all Hall of Famers. Very easy to play around if you guys all know that it exists.
Exactly. So what did you end up going?
I ended up going black-green, and with the splash of red because I didn't have enough playables. Actually, after pack 1, I settled into black-green, and I had 10 playables for my deck. And I was like, you know what? This is looking good. I saw a couple of white cards. I saw late Sandblast, and I took that. Maybe you will continue shipping me the white, but I knew that, you knew that there was a chance that I took the white card, the rare. And so, I was trying to see if I can avoid that if possible. So I ended up in black-green, and it felt reasonably open. And, I kind of took a look at your deck, and it felt like you kind of took black cards towards the end and then kind of shifted into black late. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I started out with the black-blue-gold card, the bounce and then discard 2.
Okay.
Which I think is a pretty good card. There are a lot of formats a card like that might be almost not a bomb, but there are a lot of formats where that card would be first pick quality. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about this world because it's just so aggressive, so hard to block. You really don't even necessarily want to take turns off spending 5 mana to make the opponent discard 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, team draft decks tend to be sloppier. It's still a bounce spell on the front half, so it doesn't have to do a ton on the back half to be a good card.
Right.
So I started off with I took that, and then I took the 3 blue double X card.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's another card I'm not really sure about. I don't necessarily even think it's a great card. I think that pack was extremely weak. Do you remember what you third picked?
I think I third picked the Sandblast.
Yeah, I think that pack was just really bad.
Right.
But so then I pretty much started out drafting a blue-black, cycling deck, but I didn't take a lot of black cards, and I didn't see a lot of black cards. And then in pack 3, black has a lot to offer that deck. So I decided to prioritize black a little bit more.
Yeah, that really is what ended up getting me because, based on the kind of the complexion of the first pack, I was like, well, you know what? It kind of feels like black is open. I was just seeing a lot of stuff late, and I was kind of, waffling around picks. I took a bunch of green cards just because I saw that as well, and it turns out you weren't actually in green. But Luis still somehow ended up nearly mono black, despite everything.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw Luis's deck during deck building. I didn't realize there were that many black cards that even got through.
Right.
But I guess me and you were drafting different kinds of decks. You're probably drafting more of a green creature, black removal, kind of rampish black-green deck. I'm drafting a black-blue control deck with cycling and wrath and, card drawing and whatnot. So Luis probably just took all the black 2-drops and 3-drops and drafted a black aggro deck,
Yeah, that's actually what ended up happening. He ended up with black with a light touch of white with some binding mummies. Basically a zombie deck because he 4 copies of the 2-drop 2/2. Sorry, I don't know all the names right now because the set just came out. But the bear with afflict 1, that's a zombie, and he had a couple of binding mummies, so it really shut me down. In both games, he played the 3-mana 5/5 whenever your opponent plays a spell, it gets a -1/-1 counter, and when it connects, it resets back to a 5/5. And that card was just totally absurd. He played a turn 3 both games, and it was really hard to deal with.
Did you end up passing him the Lord or hating it?
I hated it.
Why did you hate it? You didn't think Luis was black. You could have shipped it right too.
I might work for Wizards right now, but you got to give me a little bit of credit, all right? I saw that. There was an Exemplar of Strength too, which I could have taken because, I'm the black-green deck or whatever, and I was just like, I didn't see any black in pack 2. There's a decent chance Luis could be in black. I just cannot afford to make that same mistake and pass a zombie bomb.
Where are all the rest of these scrubs who just don't believe in hating and focus on their own deck when I need a zombie bomb to the zombie player?
And then I believe I also cut the Wayward Servant out of the next pack afterwards, but he still got a Binding Mummy, so he still ended up getting a great card out of that pack. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, I mean we're tied. How would you rate your teammates' decks in this draft?
Well, I actually didn't see Ephros. Luis sent a pic during deck building to ask a question. Ephros just talked about what he had, but I didn't actually see it. I mean, Luis's deck did look really good. Like, it would be underpowered for an 8-man, but to have, like, that curve and, like, zombie synergy and aggression and everything, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he 3-0'd this draft.
Right. Well, Zombies has a pretty good track record so far in the Team Draft Super League.
Yeah, but you didn't pass him the broken zombie uncommons and synergy cards. Come on.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, the packs just had, like, 2 good zombie cards. He was the only zombie drafter, so I'd cut a good one, and he'd still get, like, the secondary good one.
No, I know.
He also was cutting these zombies.
I'm just still ragging on those guys for passing you the most busted deck in the history of Team Draft. I just, But, so, I mean, my deck isn't very good. It's functional. I've got cycling cards. I'm playing 7/7/3. It's a control deck. I have win conditions, but my deck's not very good. You know what I mean? If I had this deck in, like, an 8-man, like in the Pro Tour, I would be very, very unhappy.
Right. You'd probably think maybe a 1-2 deck or whatever. But it looks like the third match is about to get underway with Marshall Sutcliffe against Eric Froelich. So we'll be right back after these messages. Oh, Luis just gets to go. All right, quickly apologize. It's actually Luis against Marshall because Luis just wants a little more action. And taking a look at Luis's hand, this is nothing like the way he started against me. He went 2-drop, 5/5 into just 4-drop. Looks like Luis's. What would you do with Luis's hand?
Obviously, he's gonna mulligan.
I came back just about 30 minutes ago, Kyle. All right, and taking a look at Marshall's deck here, looks like a blue-white deck with a little touch of black. He's got 2 copies of that white uncommon that gains you life when it enters the battlefield equal to its power, and then it's got 5 mana Eternalize this card, and you get a 4/4, or a 4 mana rather, and it becomes like a Loxodon Hierarch. So, I mean, Marshall seems to be pretty happy with his deck, but looks like Luis has a pretty. Oh, there's the Amit Eternal, but no 3rd land.
So in this draft, I was passing to you. Do you know who was passing to me? Was it Marshall or Kenji?
I believe it was Kenji. Kenji was passing to you, and he had a blue-red deck.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this could be slightly rough for Luis to get through. I mean, Skirmisher is good against a deck full of Grizzly Bears.
Right.
Although Luis already has the 3/1.
Yeah, the Catcher's Avenger is a fantastic 2-drop. Normally 2 mana 3/1s, they're okay. I mean, they're filler. But the exert ability is just so fantastic, allowing you to just kind of force through damage here.
Oh, yeah. That card never has to trade down. If your opponent plays a 1/1 or a 1/2 or something, you're just like, all right, attack exert, no problem.
Right, yeah. At least early on, it seems to be one of the better white commons in the set. And then, all right, gaining some of that life back, 2/3.
What does that card do?
It's a 3 mana 2/3. When it comes into play, you gain life equal to its power. It's got 4 mana, discard a card, Eternalize, and it becomes a 4/4 that gains life equal to its power. So if you trade a card in and becomes a Loxodon Hierarch, essentially. I'm surprised Marshall chose not to attack with the Talcrop Skirmisher the turn he played the champion, because Luis's 3/1 was exerted, and all Luis had in play was the 2 mana 2/2.
Yeah, Marshall just playing very conservative, I guess. But he certainly could have attacked there. I would have attacked.
Yeah. Luis stuck on 2, And found a third land. Unfortunately, no justice.
Don't you want to see magic? I mean, you can root for Marshall to win without rooting for Luis to be mad.
We need all the luck, Ben. We need all of the luck.
Geez, some of us come to this to put on a good show and to see good games of Magic. We don't sit around rooting for our opponents to get mad.
My plan going into this was to out-open you guys and hope you guys get incredibly mana screwed. But it's not going to work because it's a Luis, of course.
Keep it classy, Paul. Keep it classy.
I just keep it real. Marshall does have the answer, though. He's got an unquenchable thirst in his hand, so he just needs Luis to swing in once. I mean, he'll take a bunch of damage, but...
I mean, Marshall has really strong cards in play.
Yeah, definitely. And it's possible Marshall just hate drafted that zombie, as it looks like he's just kind of splashing that card. What do you think of that card?
I mean, it's really good. I mean, for black-white, I'm not sure I would want to splash it into a blue-white deck just for its ability. But, you know, I didn't want to splash the 2 white cards in my deck. I just didn't really have any other playables. So, you know, that's how it goes in TV draft sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So now that Marshall has access to Luis's list, you know, if you look at Luis's deck, he actually doesn't have a whole lot of combat tricks. He only has a Torment of Venom and a Without Weakness. So kind of being mindful of that, I think... You know, it's pretty reasonable to double block the Ambit Eternal.
Yeah, I mean, it depends because, you know, Luis did miss land drops in this game. So even if Luis doesn't have much, though, it's not that unlikely that, you know, he could have something. Now, if you know there's nothing he can have, then of course you're going to block. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's a tough spot. I mean, to make a decision like that. I mean, how blown out are you if Luis, you know?
Well, you kind of want to upgrade that Sunscourge champion anyways. So, you know, if Luis has a combat trick to kind of get both of these creatures, he's trading kind of 1-for-1, but then he gets to upgrade into a 4-4.
Right. So it's not that bad for Marshall anyway. So, yeah, it's probably a good spot for a double block.
Ooh, and Marshall, do you see that artifact that Marshall has in his hand?
No, what did he draw? I mean, I haven't played a ton. I mean, this is a pre-release, you know, TDSL here. The set hit Moto 24 hours ago. Right.
This card is completely absurd, especially in sealed deck. But I think it might be great in just you know, as long as you build around it. God Pharaoh's Gift. It's a 7-mana artifact. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie and it gains haste.
You forgot. You left off exile at an end of turn.
No.
I
did not.
I'm telling you.
Nope.
No, yeah, that card sounds really.
For every turn, no big deal. Yeah, it feels like it would get exiled, right? Because that seems a little too strong.
Yeah, that seems really broken here.
Marshall, would you like to make a 4/4? Oh, would you like to make a? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, would you like to make a 4/4? Luis stuck on lands, missed land drops, has some Grizzly Bears out. And Chiana's talking smack as Marshall plays his 7-mana broken rare. This is magic for you.
Yeah, magic is great. Actually, Luis can race here.
I hope you're losing fans by the minute.
No, my fans love me, and I love you too. So this is you know, a pretty nice setup for Marshall. You know, next turn he can actually make a copy of the Unraveling Mummy and give the Top Crop Skirmisher lifelink. So Luis won't actually be able to win the race here either.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that this game is mostly over. I mean, Marshall's not at a ton of life, so our only real hope is that he doesn't.
Oh, it has. My bad. It has haste too for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It is really cool how the Eternalized cards are an exact copy. So you get a 4/4, but you get their abilities. Right. A lot of different creatures in play. It's like kind of interesting.
See, look at this. All I'm seeing are heart symbols and next to my name. So clearly, we're doing it okay. You guys are such massive favorites. Well, I mean, I was saying that, you know, going in, you guys were probably like, what, 70% favorites? Is that like a reasonable?
I don't know, maybe. The fact that it is kind of a pre-release TDSL makes it more interesting. I don't know if that helps us or hurts us, but, you know, like, I know I was reading cards during the draft. I don't know if you guys got in a ton of practice.
Well, Marshall did a full set review, so I'm pretty, you know, he was probably the most prepared.
Yeah, so maybe you guys have the advantage with Marshall.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Well, we know the cards, but we're certainly not going to play as well. But we can just hope for another mana screw from Luis.
Well, to be honest, Kenji played extremely well. Like, we had close games, and if he had like kind of overplayed into my wrath, or not put in the damage, when he had the opportunity, like, I would have been able to win both. I was pretty impressed with how tight he played those games.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think amongst all of us, the person who's most prepared has to be Kenji, right? Because he's still streaming. All he did Monday was likely just stream 12 hours of this set, right? So he probably has like 6 or 7 drafts under his belt already. And Luis boarding in an excellent sideboard card. There were a few copies of these type of effects, but he's bringing in 2 copies of Gideon's Defeat. Now, this is an excellent sideboard card. When you draft, generally, how high do you take like high-impact sideboard cards like this?
In this day and age, very, very highly.
Yeah.
There's
and
so many
behind that.
There's so many playables in all the packs that a card that has slightly above replacement value or replacement value is of virtually no interest to me. Compared, because I figure in an 8-man where I'm not trying to pass and cut, where I'm not hating left and right, I'm going to always have 23 playables.
Right.
So to get a powerful sideboard card like that, it's Swords to Plowshares. It's 1 mana exile a creature. So to get a card like that out of the sideboard for white matchups is way more important, in my opinion, than to get something that is your 21st or 19th or even 17th, 15th best card in your deck. Because more than likely, the first card out is not that much worse than the 15th card in your deck.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the Gideon's Defeat. I mean, the 3 best ones obviously being Gideon's Defeat, Liliana's Defeat, and Chandra's Defeat, because they actually just kill creatures, whereas the blue one's just a counterspell, and the green one, I had the chance to take it. I was like, does this kill a green creature? But it does not. It kills like a forest, Nissa, and like an enchantment. So I was like, probably not going to take this one. But.
No, that one's not very exciting. But the ones that can be described in some fashion or another as Swords to Plowshares are really, really strong and limited.
Yeah. Looks like Marshall actually has a pretty decent deck here. We have some pretty powerful late game cards here. We have the Wrath, we have the Late Claim, Godpharaoh's Gift, and an Archfiend of Ifnir, which he's got 5 black sources. But worst case scenario, you can still cycle it.
And this is going to be a tough deck for me to beat because my deck is kind of grindy. I mean, I do have those discard spells. Maybe I can use those for good effect against his slow deck. But I think his late game.
Yeah, I already know what's going to happen. Marshall's going to be on 6 lands, 2 cards in hand. They're just both going to be 7 drops, and you're going to just play that stupid thing. Although you just kind of see it coming, right?
Right, and his late game is a lot better than mine, so I think that's going to be a tough matchup for me.
Right. Yeah, all in. I was doing some of the heavy lifting the first time around, but we're swapping. That's why we're such a good team. Now we have Marshall carrying the load for us.
Well, you guys can't control who I pass to,
Man. All right, what do we have? Not as great of a start, and Luis with pretty solid opener here. And it looks like he opts to play the Swamp over the Cycle Land. Is that what you would have done there too?
Yeah, it is, because I would also cycle this 4-2. It's pretty weak, and I mean, Luis's deck does not need a lot of lands. Mm-hmm. So I like the idea of Swamp, use the mana to cycle the 4-2, and then you can cycle the cycling land later and just dig for your better cards and try not to get flooded. Mm-hmm. Minimizes your chances at it anyway.
Ooh, we got an Anointer Priest here.
Now it's interesting because Luis has the powerful 4-drop and the camel, so it's kind of unclear now whether he should play the desert. Obviously, with Marshall blocking, now he's not going to play the desert because he's going to play camel.
Right. And based on Luis's hand, you like being aggressive with the Gideon's Defeat there, right?
Yeah, he has the second one. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be frivolous with your 1 copy of it, but when you have a second one in hand, of course, I mean, then it becomes a no-brainer.
Right. And Marshall, no targets for the, is that Lethal Strike, I believe? Lethal Sting. 3 mana, sorcery. When you cast it, you put a -1/-1 counter on a creature you control, but you get to destroy a creature.
Yeah, I'm not sure how good that card is yet. It feels like a card like you want one of, but it's probably not some all-powerful removal spell. I'm not saying you wouldn't play 2, but unless you have a lot of happy homes for the counters, you don't really want to have hands with multiple copies of that in it, I don't think.
Right. It probably, I mean, it feels like it's at its best maybe in a black-green counters type deck where you get a little more synergy there.
Or if you have a catcher's monument and, you make a lot of 1/1s and you go wide, then a card like that might be, a lot better. But, I mean, a lot of times taking your 3/3 to a 2/2 when you have 1 or 2 creatures out, that's a real drawback. That's not negligible,
Okay. So this is kind of interesting. Of course, he drew the land, but I was going to say, like, given Luis's board there, would you have played the cycle land there? Because you have such a good board. Marshall has nothing. He's likely going to play a creature. If he plays a creature that's not white, you can use the Torment of Venom to kind of swing through and attack.
Nah, I wouldn't have. I would still cycle it. Like, Luis knows Marshall has Wrath. If anything, like, Luis has to just make sure he has something to play as follow up to that. I mean, I don't see that land being worth a card in play for Luis. You know what I mean? That's why right from turn 1 I like holding it to cycle it, because his deck does not want to flood out. And that's one of the biggest concerns when you have an aggressive deck and you have to play like a decent land count like he is. So, I mean, I think that, any chance you get to cycle that land, if it's not your only black source and you have more than 2 lands, you're going to see Luis greatly prioritize not putting that land in play.
Yeah. And also, if you take, we have access to deck list once again. If you take a look at Marshall's deck, he's got mostly white creatures in his deck. So he has to think that Gideon's defeat is likely good enough.
Yeah. No, I mean,
that was super fast.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good matchup for Luis. Marshall has a slow controlling deck, and Luis's deck is all bears, double Gideons. What's it called? Gideon's Reproach? Defiance. Defeat. But yeah, I mean, this is clearly a matchup that favors Luis, but it of course comes down to the hands and the draws and the games.
Yeah.
This game we see Marshall took a mulligan and he has a pretty good 6, and Luis doesn't have a black source, but if he draws one, which of course he does turn 1 because it's Luis, then
was there ever a doubt?
I'm used to me playing, and like I get there sometimes. Like
I'm realistic.
Yeah, like I get there sometimes, you know what I mean? I'm not Luis. I don't just get what I need when I need it. And I don't have bad luck. Like sometimes I get there and sometimes I don't. When you're watching Luis, it's just a whole different ballgame. Demonic Tutor every turn.
Marshall's got good mana here, and he has an excellent sideboard card for Marshall's bombs. He's got the Forsake the Worldly.
Yeah, and most importantly, Marshall has kind of a slow draw, which is, of course, the number one thing Luis is looking for with his all Grizzly Bears deck.
But one card that Marshall has in his hand that can do a lot of work is that 5-mana 3/4 lifelinker. As Luis is holding 2 copies of Gideon's Defeat, it doesn't really have a way to attack through it.
Right, that could be a problem. Luis is going to have to draw zombies to tap it, or one of his very few outs.
Ooh, strategic planning. Marshall can now add 2 lands and kept the 7-drop.
Well, he didn't need another land. I mean, it would have just been land 6.
Right.
Doesn't do anything for him.
Oh, yeah. So for some reason, I thought that was the Mythic Sphinx, which costs 6 mana. That's the 5-mana 4/4 Sphinx. When you cycle or discard, target creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Man, I'm covering the PT. I gotta get much better with these card names. Ominous Sphinx.
I would talk, but it would be kind of ridiculous if I talk smack about not knowing card names.
Yeah, I mean the set did just come out on Magic Online.
So this is going to be a big turn. I mean, Marshall still got plenty of life, but if Luis draws another zombie, taps the blocker, and gets in 7, I mean, wow, that's a big deal. If Luis bricks here, then Marshall's in pretty good shape.
Was there a doubt? I'm surprised that Marshall opted not to play the lifelinker there.
Yeah, that was maybe a little strange. Does he have a decent amount of cycling cards, so he felt like maybe if he drew one of those, he'd be able to, not die the following turn or something?
Possibly. So Marshall has two interesting, actually has several lines. He could opt to just play the 3/4 lifelinker here, but he can also play an Anointer Priest or an Unquenchable Thirst and keep up Sandblast.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot. With 2 good blockers, if Luis were to play a zombie and tap the lifelinker in alpha, Marshall would not be dead, but he'd be going to 2 life. I mean, on the other hand, you have the ability to play a 1/3, which, is an effective blocker, and have a Sandblast to take out the 3/3. So, I mean, that seems like the most likely play, I think. But I don't know. Actually, well, while the creature's tapped, you probably just want an Unquenchable Thirst to 3/3, to be honest, right?
Yeah, unless you think Luis might have, easily keeping up the 3 mana, unless you think he might have the Forsake the Worldly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty astute to realize that Luis is definitely going to board that in because there are a lot of targets. But you know what? You do have deck lists. Maybe Marshall figures this out. Maybe he looks at Luis's deck list, saw that Forsake is going to come in, sees Luis's 3 mana open, and decides to play around it. That would be a pretty tight play. I think if this were like a Pro Tour and I didn't have deck lists, this would be my line. I think I would Unquenching Thirst
and he
the zombie.
didn't use it.
Didn't use what? Oh, Luis didn't Forsake the World. Yeah, that's very strange. I don't know why Luis wouldn't want to untap.
And he drew a zombie. Oh my goodness. The 5/5 zombie.
Maybe Luis felt like if he drew a zombie, Marshall would be low enough that he was going to win anyway, but I don't think I like this play. This is one of the first plays that I think Luis has made. I mean, you need to end this game. You're playing against a control deck. I mean, I don't know why you don't want to free up your 3/3 there.
Right. I think it's just time to just slam the lifelinker here. No more and hope for no zombie. Oh, no. The Binding Mummy's off the board. So it's actually going to be pretty tough for Luis to punch through here.
Yeah, Marshall could definitely win this game now.
Yeah. Marshall somehow drew like the one blue creature and black creature in his deck.
Yeah.
And we have updated news. Good news, by the way, really good news. Kenji Igashira defeated Eric Froelich. So team limited resources up 2-1.
Well, Luis does have 5 points of afflict on the board, right?
Oh, and Marshall drew the 3-mana 2/3 that gains him life.
So brutal.
Wow, what a turnaround here. I mean, Luis does have 2 copies of Gideon's Defeat, so he can exile the champion if he gets Marshall to block. But, Marshall's got that 3/4 lifelinker that Luis has no answer to. Yeah. Wow. Can Marshall start attacking soon?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Oh, that's a dead Amit Eternal. Wow. Does he want to attack here?
I don't understand what Luis did this game, to be honest. I mean, if you need to be attacking, I mean, the Amit Eternal, that's what the card does. It has Afflict 3. I don't know. I mean, obviously it couldn't attack with the last turn or anything, but I would have definitely Forsake the World with the Thirst untapped and output.
Right.
Even if I didn't draw a zombie to tap the blocker, I'd still probably just alpha because you need to deal all that damage and let them eat a bear.
And I guess Luis was just really, really afraid of the Marshall's 7-mana threats. Okay. I mean, Marshall still is at 7 here. Opting not to attack to get that Winged Shepherd off the board. I guess he could just block it and do the same thing.
Yeah, and he doesn't necessarily want to give away that he has something. Because it doesn't get in any more damage. So, this play I do like. You just pass the turn and then,
Yeah, Marshall's just going to attack with the Vigilance creature here, right?
And you're going to kill it and it's the same thing. But you don't give Marshall the opportunity to not block and then maybe use a trick and play around it or something. Right. So, I mean, even though it's a tough card to play around, I think there's no reason to telegraph that you have something when you're not dealing any extra damage or anything.
So what is Marshall considering here? And where is he going to put this counter?
I would assume the Anointer Priest, maybe. The creature he most wants to chump block with and then just bring back.
Huh. Why did he want to get that off the board? Is he attacking with his ground creatures?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I mean, yeah, this makes sense. Get the other 2/2 off the board so Luis can't double block, right?
Right. Luis has no good double block.
Has the Gideon's Defeat here.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really hard game for Luis to win from this point. I don't know why he switched from playing super aggressive to just deciding to try and go long.
Okay, that was a decent draw from Luis.
Yeah. So, I mean, Luis now basically is playing the long game. He's going to shrink the flyer, I guess.
Almost, not quite a land.
I don't know. Even if he turns that 4/4 Sphinx into a 1/1, it still stops Mind Sensor. So
Gideon's Defeat's so good against the champion here. We don't get to internalize and gain 4 life.
Is Marshall just... No, he's at 8. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what Luis is going to do.
Why? So, okay. So he's still keeping up the Forsake the Worldly for the artifact. And Marshall's just going to jam this, right? It triggers on your combat step. And he has to think, if Luis had the Forsake the Worldly, he might have used it on the Unquenchable Thirst.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, Marshall's going to cast it because what are you holding it for? You're trying to pull Luis's Forsake the Worldly that he may or may not have. That personally, I would think he didn't have. But I mean, yeah,
right.
Of course, it's right for Marshall to play it. That's not really in question.
Also, Luis got a little bit punished there for kind of sandbagging his lands, because if he didn't, he would have been able to play the Torment and kind of take less damage there. I don't know what cards. Oh no, he does have the 3-mana 2/2.
Look at what Marshall drew.
The
it's
race.
So stupid. They're in like a tight race that Luis could still very much win here. I
consider that a very smart draw by Marshall.
Luis was taking 1 and going to 3, putting Marshall back to 2.
Very intelligent draw.
Disgusting.
Sacrifice Anointed Priest. Did he take the damage? Why would you take the damage?
No, he didn't take damage.
He
was at 4. He just sacked something else.
Although,
yeah, he probably should have sacked Anointed Priest, but I mean, he definitely didn't take the damage.
Right. So Luis is at 3. He has to block the 3/3. So Marshall can just attack with both of the flyers here if he wants.
Yeah,
I guess
this game is over now. I mean, I don't even know like what Luis could draw with Marshall still at 7. You know, it's not
right.
It's not like Luis is sitting around with outs. You know, like
could be anything. And I think that's game. All right. A 2-0 for this round for Team LR. So 3-1. I'm liking our chances a little more.
Yeah, and I probably have the worst deck on the team, and I still have to play 2 matches. Not feeling good about this.
Yeah, well, my deck isn't great. So you probably have a decent chance against me. But Marshall certainly got a lot of power, so he might be kind of favored in that matchup.
Yeah. No, I don't like our chances. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like LeBron before the finals, where like he was not gonna call Cleveland a better team in interviews.
I'll accept being the Warriors. That's cool.
Yeah. In interviews, he's just all like, yeah, the Warriors are the best team in the league. They have been for a long time.
We're like the players in the Warriors. We'd be like Sean Livingston, Iguodala. We're the role players, but we still got it done off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, they were close matches. My match with Kenji was close too. I mean, to be honest, the decks seem pretty close and comparable, and we've seen good games of Magic. I definitely, Kenji played really well, like I said, to win really tight games, but he definitely also drew like the 2-mana 2/1 afflict on the last turn when he needed to, or I would have won. And we just saw Marshall kind of outdraw Luis down the stretch there a little bit.
Yeah. But, how do you think? How do you think that game would have gone if Luis opted to kill the Unquenchable Thirst?
To be honest, I think Luis would have won. I mean, he had so much afflict in play. I really don't understand the line of logic there. I mean, if he frees up that 3/3 and then tops a zombie, like I think that the game is over. Like I think that he's not necessarily dead on board, but I think next turn you can just attack with the afflict creatures and it's lethal.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, I didn't really like count everything up and all that. And I'm sure Luis has good reason. He has deck lists. He knows that Marshall has a lot of powerful artifacts and enchantments and stuff. But nonetheless, I feel like when you're the aggro deck against a control deck with as much power as Marshall's, as much life gain even as Marshall's and stuff, that's your window and you take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But but I mean, it was still a super close game. Marshall ended up coming back, had to draw like huge creatures that weren't white for the Gideon's defeat to actually end up getting there. So that does it for this round. Team Liberty Resources up 3-1. Hopefully we can finish it off in the next round. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers